All right, so brief introductions really quickly. We have Matt Lauria here. May Whitman. Sarah Ramos. Miles Heizer. Writer Sarah Watson. And EP David Hudgins. So first, you guys, congratulations on the renewal and a full season, which we've all been wanting that for years now. Were you expecting the full season pickup coming off of such a strong year?
Yes, we were hopeful and cautiously optimistic and very excited about a pickup. I wasn't expecting 22 episodes. I don't know if you guys were. And when you get a 22 episode order these days, which is rare in series television lately, it's sort of like that. Yes, and then it's also like, oh shit, we got a lot of work to do. But we're thrilled, I think, to have that order.
Thanks. Were you guys, what do you think it was about last season and talent and writers and EPs? What sort of clicked? The ratings were up. It's been on for years now. It's always kind of been a bubble show, even though it was a critical darling. Why did this season sort of propel it to the next level?
I don't know. I mean, for me, Matt, come on. For me personally, I thought it was, maybe one thing is that, there's not really too many TV shows where you get to see people grow and change and actually encompass those changes and become different people. And so I think partially, every year just gets better and better because you really do get to know the people that you're watching, and you're along with them on all these journeys, and you know where the changes have taken place in their lives. You've been with them through the most intimate moments of their lives, so you feel like you're part of the family. And so at this point, you know why the characters do the things they do and all that sort of, and so I think this year also, though, a lot of really happy stuff happened and sad stuff. I think it was a real good amalgamation of sort of upsetting challenges, but pushing through them with a positive light and stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Also, just kind of from a bit of an outsider perspective, a newbie perspective, I think word of mouth, so many shows have been on and have been fantastic shows, and but then once they start, you feel like, well, I already missed and blah, blah. But now with the accessibility of Netflix and everything being a little bit more ubiquitous, I feel like with the word of, I've had so many people be like, man, I've just heard and heard and heard forever from my friend or whatever, that's so great. And then now they have access to it in a more immediate way, and I think that people are finally catching up on something that everyone has been in love with.
Yeah, I will say that the shift kind of happened this year from meeting people and saying oh yeah, I read on Parenthood, from people going oh, what's that? Is that on television? To oh my God, I love that, or oh, my wife loves that, or that's what I get that a lot.
I thought you guys were just going to say it was the addition of Matt Lauria to the cast.
Yes, well, of course.
It didn't hurt. It did not hurt, am I right?
All your reasoning for the whole
But seriously, how amazing were our guest actors this year? Matt Lauria, Ray Romano. It was just, to add, we have such a tremendous and large cast already, and to add that level of talent and those outside storylines was just, it was really amazing to write.
So did you know in the writer's room, did you feel we have really good material here, this is going to be, a year of change for the Bravermans?
Well, I'll just say, the first week of the writer's room last year, we come in the room, and the way we work is we sit down and we say, all right, we take each character, where are we going to go with them this year? And we try and block out in the first couple of weeks arcs for the season for the characters, and we go through each one. And you always get to the point where, all right, what story are we going to tell here? What's going to be our sort of main engine? What's going to be driving things? And last year we had a really interesting moment in the room where the idea of giving Christina breast cancer came up. And, it's a very personal story. Jason Katims, who developed the show, his wife is a survivor. My sister had breast cancer and actually didn't survive. And then there were two other writers in the room who had very personal experiences. So, breast cancer, yeah, that's some must-see television, right? Bring everybody in for the happy breast cancer story. But we did feel like, because of Katims and because of the way he works and operates in his voice, that we could tell the story in a very real way and in a funny way. And we thought it could really filter down and affect all of the other characters on the show and the kids. And so I felt like last year when we landed on the breast cancer story, there was a bit of a sigh of relief. It's like, okay, we always know we have this story to go back to, and it gives you the freedom to say, all right, now what are we going to do? Now let's have May meet a veteran returning home with PTSD. Let's have some fun with Drew and with Miles' character. So I think it really gave us freedom once we landed on that breast cancer storyline.
Matt, you were the new addition this season, and I think we were all excited when you were cast, Friday Night Lights things, but we didn't know just how much we were going to fall in love with the character, and especially Amber and Ryan together. How quickly did you guys realize you had such a special chemistry and that the characters were just so right for each other?
You want to field that one, babe?
Where did it start, babe? You go first, babe.
No, you first. You go. Well, I mean, well, it was pretty obvious, like, the minute that we started working, working together, and I just looked into her eyes, and they're just so, like, her eyes are so deep, and they just say, like, Matt, Lauria, you are it, And
it was hard living for 24 years, looking at people and guys being like, "Who's Matt Lauria?" And I was like, "I don't know, I don't know yet."
And then, and so we had that in common because I look at myself the same way, and so, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a funny thing because, like, those of you who know Amber, has a tumultuous past, and she's dated a lot of different types of men, and I don't know, for me it was a really fun idea to see her actually have a stable kind of thing happen, and especially in this area, it's like, I think it was sort of a reflection before who she was seeing of where she was in her life, and she didn't believe in herself that much, and maybe wasn't receptive to like a healthy sort of relationship, and then you meet somebody and it seems like they're really kind of like opposites in a lot of ways, but I think early on that was something that Matt and I talked about, was like how special it was that they could like really balance each other out and teach each other things that the other one wouldn't know, or stuff like that. So I think that's like a really cool, special thing to watch, is them sort of like help show each other and grow in sort of unexpected ways. So I'm glad.
It's kind of like our relationship. I mean, I think that we both. It was such a brave. It's such an important issue to tackle, and I thought the writers did such a good job of bringing a truthful look at it, and we felt. We really felt passionate about telling that story, and brought as much heart as we could to it, and through that became really, really close. And it's funny because our relationship offset is similar in sort of like teaching me things that are unexpected, or helping me grow in ways that are, because we're kind of, in some ways we're really alike, in other ways we're really different, and not just height.
We're not that different in height.
And I know his arc wasn't originally planned to be as long, so at what point were you guys like, this is amazing, we need to expand on this in the story?
I think part of it was when we got Matt Lauria. I mean, when we originally, honestly, I'll tell you the sort of the advent of his character was we in the writer's room started talking about this. It really started as a Zeke story, and this idea that he's sort of like puttering around in his middle age, and Camille makes him go to the Veterans Center, and he makes an unexpected connection there. And we started talking about who this kid would be, and we were like, somebody said like, oh, somebody that's sort of like Matt Lauria from Friday Night Lights, or we said Luke Cafferty. So for the first week we were talking about this story, we just referred to him as Captain Cafferty. And then the beauty of when you work on a Jason the beauty of working on a Jason Tatum show is when you say, like, maybe we could get somebody like Matt Lauria, you get Matt Lauria. And, and then once we saw that original baseball scene, with the two of you sitting together, it just, I don't know, it worked.
Sarah, we didn't get to see Hattie as much this season, but when you did pop back in, it was for really intense, heavy stuff. Was it? Can you talk a little about sort of being on the outside and coming back and tackling such heavy material?
Yeah, it was actually helpful to be far away because the storyline's about like feeling really distant. And so that was already done. And then you guys just come in and be like, oh shit, this would be crazy and awful to have to deal with from far away. And like it would be heightened in the moments that you are talking to them. And like I did a phone call scene with Peter that was like really upsetting, and we were in like actually on the phone, and we did like Skypes where we were actually Skyping. Like I wasn't like in the same room with them, which like helped like the glitches in connection would like make it more upsetting and like scary and weird. So yeah.
Miles, heavy stuff for you this season too. You were so good. You really tackled stuff that you were given. What did you think when you got the Drew and Amy storyline and kind of where that ended up going? Because that can kind of be a controversial thing to delve into, but I think the show handled it so well.
I was definitely very nervous, but mainly for like, I'm gonna shame this. I was afraid I was gonna do terribly, and everyone was gonna be like, "This is bad," essentially. I also was really stressed, realizing there would be like a scene where that happened. aka I'd have to have my shirt off, and yeah, not great. But nevertheless,
Or what happened?
where we so.
You had a big story arc.
Yeah, that's
It started
true.
with one thing, ended with another.
Well, I was really nervous, but I ended up Peter Krause, Uncle Adam. He ended up directing. I think it was 2 of the episodes that I had through that, which was really interesting because we actually kind of had a different perspective on it, which was. I don't know, it's kind of rare on this show. It seems like a lot of times everyone's kind of has a very similar, the directors, like a view on the storylines essentially. And Peter and I didn't. And it was like really interesting talking to him, and it ended up like shifting the entire thing, which was really interesting. I was just, I don't know. I wanted to because it's such like a sensitive subject, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to feel good about it, and I think that was the writing and having Peter there directing. It was like it felt good by the end of it, but it was really nerve-wracking.
There's not really a good segue for this, but Sarah and I were talking before this, and there's a lot of fun stories from set. I mean, you guys, it's a family show. You're all really close, like family. You deal with really heavy material on screen most of the time, but what kind of stuff is happening behind the scenes? And Sarah, I'm looking right at you for this one first, because you promised me a good story.
Well, clearly a lot of stuff is happening behind the scenes, which we've already found out with these two. But we were talking about like what should we talk about, and one of my favorite stories about Michael B. Jordan being on Parenthood, who I think people like, right? Anyways. Yeah, Michael. I went through a phase of like pranking is kind of annoying, but I'm like text pranking people. And one day, Michael and I were shooting a scene like on location, and Miles was on set. And we decided to text Michael B. Jordan from Miles's phone, whose number he didn't have, and pretend to be like a girl that he like has. We pretended to be a PA.
I think we found her like a picture of some girl from his Twitter, like who had mentioned him. And we're like, we'll just be this girl.
And we made a character, and we were like, hey, because when you're on location, you put up like yellow signs that say like P-Hood, like arrow this way to get to like base camp and stuff. And we were like, oh my god, hey, like, are you in Pasadena? Like, I see these signs. And he was like, who is this?
Like, too nice, being like, yeah, I am like, actually.
Yeah, who is this? And we went on, and we were like, it's Izzy. And like
Izzy was always the name.
Yeah, we always went with Izzy, and he didn't know who we were, but he was like really nice, and we were like really aggressive, like no, we hung out like that one night, and like we're really big. And then he was like, oh yeah, and we like kept pushing it for hours. And then we like sent him a picture of the girl and asked a question. What did we ask?
What did we ask? Oh, am I pretty? Apparently. I don't even remember. But yeah,
You
am
guys
I pretty?
catfished him.
With like yeah, pretty much. The worst part,
Appropriate.
but it actually went the.
He was going along with it so much where we
Yeah.
were saying crazy stuff that we were like, I would never believe this. I'd be like, are you
yeah,
messing
of
with
course.
us?
And it ended up being like.
Well, we decided we were like, we can take any liberty we want right now because he's like believing us. And so it was Miles' idea to say, OMG, I got in a car wreck.
Yeah, and it was, but the idea was that we were like, Izzy was like driving, was like driving to the set to me.
And then we were like, OMG, I got in a car wreck. And he was like, where are you? He was like, what? Like, hi, you crazy? He's like, you crazy, ma? And then he was like, where are you? And we said,
we're on the corner of Angel Avenue
and Devil Boulevard. And
he also was like, where is that? But he later said that that's
and then
when
we called him. He was
but-
like, that's when I thought something was off. And we were like, yeah. So that was a fun day for us.
They also quickly did that exact same thing to Peter Krause, the first table read that we had from the pilot.
The first
episode.
scene outside.
No, wasn't it at the table read, or was
Maybe. That was maybe
the
when it
long story
started.
short was Sarah said to him in a very concise text like, "Hey man, saw you driving on the 101. Must be doing
Which is a
well.
freeway.
Nice car." Like something like that. Like,
Doesn't he drive a
haven't seen
Prius?
you. He drives a Prius.
Well, he
yeah.
used to. Well, no. He used to drive like BMWs and stuff, like old ones.
But it was pretty amazing. I will never forget. Saw you on the 101.
We loved it. We had a lot of fun.
So there you go.
I don't even know how to go on from that. I don't think any story can top it. Writer's room, do you guys do similar stuff to each other?
We can discuss here.
Oh, I'll say one thing. Some of you guys might know I'm an avid Friday Night Lights fan, and I know it's so good. But I dressed up as them for Halloween. I dressed up as Tim Riggins. He happens to have a special place for him. It's a different place than the place I have for you, but it's a different place. But it was so cool, like being on the show because I had a custom tiny Riggins jersey made from the place they got their Panthers jerseys. So it's like an official jersey, and like the art department of our show like painted me a special Panthers helmet, and then like the wardrobe people she was like, I had to go to the Little League office and I got you some tiny pants, and I had to wear these tiny football pants and stuff. But it was so fun because I showed up to set and came fully in the gear and stuff like that, and then I had Landon dressed up as Landon and his brother Gabe dressed up as Saracen and his grandmother, which is pretty amazing. And so anyway, that was pretty fun because I got to take a lot of pictures with Matt.
Have you met
dressed as
Riggins?
the small
Have
Riggins.
you met Taylor Kitsch?
No, and it's
I
very
have.
frustrating to me. You have?
Yeah, that's actually a funny writer's room story. Season 1, our writer's room was right next to Friday Night Lights, and he had come in to meet with Jason, and Jason thought it would be nice to bring him in. And so when you're not expecting Tim Riggins to walk in the door here, and Tim Riggins, I mean, the ladies of Parenthood Season 1, we didn't think to take a picture while he was in the room, but someone took a picture right after he left, and we're literally all like...
It's the worst. Kate has said to me on occasion, literally that every single person, man or woman, not age related, has come up to him and been like, he just makes me feel things that I haven't felt before. It's a very special thing there. Sorry.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to think because I also wanted to talk about Max Burkholder, who plays Max Braverman. Everybody clap. Who we love, and he's really funny. And I'm trying to think of a specific story. I can think of a funny video. I'll try to make it good. It's a 3-second video. We're at a museum and there's a huge pillar, it's really wide, and he just runs up to it and attaches himself onto it like a insect. And it's really weird. And he's really flexible and does weird. I have a lot of weird pictures of Max doing
We
weird
also
shit
like
on
to
set.
sing Taylor
Stuff.
Swift songs with Savannah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, little
my
baby
God, if only I
Savannah.
could
We
play it.
take a lot of videos of us singing.
Oh
Taylor
yeah,
Swift
because we did a music video with the cast, and we were one day with Savannah and Tyree, who played the littlest kids on the show, and we were like getting them to sing, and Tyree raps. He's like, yeah, he's pretty good at it, and Savannah loves Taylor Swift, and she's a great singer.
I know, May, I think I remember you were really excited to have some stuff with Dax this season, because that's not really a pairing that you guys have had a lot. Is there anyone you guys would like to work with that maybe you haven't as much, and anyone you guys would like to write to that maybe you haven't been able to over the years?
Taylor Kitsch.
Yes, please. I wish that we'd gotten
great
him.
idea.
Yeah, like remember because we actually had Billy Riggins was Dax's best man, and it was Billy. He's like, yeah, Billy's coming up from Texas to be my best man, and I wish so much that I had like been there for that scene because I would have loved to have thrown in a like, Billy's coming? Is Tim coming? Like I wish we could have had a really small moment of that in there. But we got another season, 22 whole episodes where we can't find one spot.
No.
for
Actually,
everyone.
look, we're in the room right now on season 5, breaking the stories, and we're trying to figure it out. But one of the things we always do, because of the way the show works, and because it is such a large ensemble cast, is you try to create stories that have crossover. You try to get, Drew in somebody else's story. You try to get Amber in somebody else's story. And so you're constantly looking for ways to do that. And then, you also end up, inevitably, because you want to take these characters on a journey and have them change, we always end up with, well, we probably need this new character this year, and then we'll spend some time thinking about who's our new character going to be. But the answer to the question is, in terms of in terms of pairings that I've always wanted to see together, what I think is great and what is part of the, the wish fulfillment and the fantasy of Parenthood is, that house, which is so great, and this idea, and I'm actually stealing this from one of our new writers this year who came in with the perspective, Gina Fattori, and she said, what I love about the show, it's this fantasy that you can always go home and see your mom and dad and they'll make everything better. And I said, yeah, and it's also this fantasy that you get along with your brothers and sisters, because I feel like the adult siblings, there's a lot of territory to be mined there in terms of conflict between them. And because we have stories for the kids, we have stories with the kids and their parents, and then we try and tell sibling stories. We're biting off a great Zeke and Camille story this year. So it's all about mixing up the dynamics where you can. Can you be more specific, Sarah?
Sure. No, we do, in the writer's room, we also have all our characters' headshots on the wall, and that's pretty typical in a writer's room, but usually in a writer's room, it's like 4 headshots. Ours take up the entire wall, and we've added significant guest stars over on another wall, so we've got, just these huge wrapping of characters that we kind of stare at as we're working, and so, yeah, it is sort of fun to sort of, like, try to puzzle together. Like, I really loved that scene last year where Julia and Crosby have a scene outside of the restaurant, and it was just, they haven't done a ton together where it's just the two of them, so, yeah, we were talking about how we can kind of create that again, because it was really, I found it moving.
Anyone that you guys would love to kind of pair off with at some point?
I always like working with, it's fun that Amber's gone off on her own. And Amber's actually one of the few that I feel has had sort of semi-individual storylines with everybody, kind of. But, I love that I love working at the Luncheonette, and I love that she gets to be around these two strong sort of father figures. And, anytime I get to work with Peter, I feel like he's a really good influence for her. And also, there's music there, which I love. And I don't know, but I think, it would be fun to kind of get more into that stuff, maybe the Peter stuff or, the Dax stuff. And it'd be especially fun, I think, now that Amber's kind of gone off on her own, to kind of like come back to working a lot with Lauren Graham, who's like, one of my best friends. And yeah, she's the best. And
Funny you should mention that.
Funny you should mention that. That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear right here.
I will say, when we started talking about the characters this season, we were talking about Amber and kind of this journey she's been on. Jason said something this year that it's like he really now thinks of Amber as one of the adults.
Yeah,
and it's been interesting to see her grow up. And I felt like this odd sense of like pride for like she's done so good and overcome so much.
It's so cool, and that's the thing too that I love about this show and these guys is like, you know, with a character like Amber, it's just like it's so possible to have it be like, oh, and now she's doing so well, and then all of a sudden she's back to drugs or like something, you know, just for like conflict's sake. But when you really look at real life, like people do grow and they do change, but life keeps throwing stuff at you, and it's different challenges and it's new challenges, and you have to keep adjusting and adapting. But it doesn't mean you have to like regress back to who you were when you were 16 or whatever, you know. So yeah, I mean, Lauren and Miles, of course, you know, I mean that is always fun because he's my roommate in real life, guys. Did you know that?
It's true.
It's true. So we could drive to work together if we're in scenes together. We could save on gas. It's good for everybody.
So you guys brought up season 5 a little. I know you've written or broken 2 episodes. Can you share anything with us today, with us and them? Because they may not know either at this point.
Can we share? Sure. Well, first of all, it's, you know, with this early in the season, it's still a work in progress. We're still finding the stories. In fact, the way we work is we'll go through and break a couple of episodes and have them done. We'll put them aside. We'll work on the next set. Then we'll go back and we'll put them all together and say, does any of this make sense? You know, are we tracking these characters? But I will say that this season, so far, seems to be a lot about big changes happening in everybody's life. So,
Could you vague that up?
How's that for vague? What's that?
Could you vague that up for us?
Well, it's no, I don't think I can be more specific because we're just not there yet. But we want to put it this way: marriages will be tested. You know, there, and it goes back to your pairings question because you do. You know, somebody will say in the room, "Oh, I really love that scene with, for example, Hank and you know." Max had I think maybe 2 scenes last year, right? And people really responded to those scenes of seeing Hank and Max together. And so you think about that, you go, there's something maybe we could explore. That's just one example. I'm not purposely trying to be vague, but we're not, you know,
It's
we
all
don't know
flux.
yet.
It's like life. We don't even know where it's going yet. But it's going to be great. And you should tune in Thursdays at 10.
Thursdays now, guys.
New night.
The old switcheroo.
How are you feeling about Thursdays? What do you think? Good fit?
Kind of excited, actually. I mean, Thursdays, I grew up on must-see TV, and Thursday night being like the big NBC night. And so, I mean, just sort of like the TV-loving child in me is sort of like, ooh, that's kind of cool to be following a Michael J. Fox show on Thursday night. I'm into it.
Can you guys say anything about, I mean, you just brought up Hank. Can you say who we might see back, who you would like to see back? We've got one
Jason
here,
Ritter.
2 sitting back here.
Yeah, you might see Hank back for sure, and I think Jason has his own show, which I hear is amazing.
Yeah.
So that
Dating Lauren Graham's former TV daughter.
That might be a challenge, but you know, you never know. You might be able to bring a character back for an episode or 2, and we're just now figuring out, you know, sort of new guest stars that we might want to bring in for next
And I
year.
just saw on Twitter that it is official that Matt has been speaking to Jason, so that's out there now.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
Can I say I would like to come back with the cast of Spring Breakers.
You made some new bad boy friends in
Yeah,
college.
Hattie's gonna be either a complete trouble, like Amanda Bynes as character, or somebody.
You just started a Twitter war.
I love Amanda Bynes, and I wish she would follow me on Twitter.
This is your big ploy.
You
This
guys,
is all just a ploy to get her
she's
to follow you.
reading that. She's following this. She's here. Or be, you know, never mind.
Well, Drew's going to college too. Are you excited to Are we
I'm
going to see
excited.
it? I don't know. What is
I
college?
have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm nervous about it. There's so many things that could happen at college, like as Sarah was mentioning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I literally have no idea what's going to happen, and I'm just excited.
I hope it involves a lot of like him calling me to come like pick him up
Exactly,
drunk, or like he needs to stay on my
Or,
couch,
like,
and then
I was
we're
gonna say, yeah,
uncomfortable.
like you got to get out of the dorm, bro, and then I have to go live with.
And then he like lives with us, and then he's like, you got to get your brother out of it. You know what I mean? It's rich. It's rich with possibility.
We're really pushing.
Now it is time for your questions. If you guys have any, just raise your hands. Okay.
I'm just wondering, with music playing such an important part in television, and it's clearly evident in Parenthood, I'm just wondering if there's a song for any of you that really stands out as having perfectly captured a moment. I can think of the Christina, the video at the end of the last season, but I'm just wondering if there's another song that captures that moment so perfectly for you.
I like the theme song. Sets it up pretty well.
Weirdly, I've never noticed the particular song. I guess when I think about it, huh?
Oh yeah, didn't you have a song in it?
Am I sexy? Oh my gosh! Wow, this is the worst. Now I have to tell this whole story. I feel like there was this girl from the internet, you guys.
That's a nice start. Yeah, your family just about had a heart attack in the second row.
This girl named Kitty Pryde. She's not watching. We're fine, but she's like this like rapper, and basically I was like, I love this music video. I had like a weird experience, like a weird vacation that her song, like the whole time I was there, I listened to her song and like ended up loving it. I don't know. It's called "OK Cupid" by Kitty Pryde. And basically, I was like, we have to get in with this girl. She didn't even have that big of a fan base. I was like, this is gonna be great, and like followed her on Twitter, and like she wouldn't give me the time of day. Like it wasn't working. And yeah, exactly. Basically, I like forced them, Parenthood, to play her song during my sex scene. I was like, try this song. And it's like this weird song, and I was like, there's no way they'll ever play it. And then they totally played it. And she like talked to us to May and I on the internet like about my song or her song
they won her
played in
over.
our sex scene.
And now we're friends with her.
And now yeah.
But but that's one thing that's cool about Parenthood is that it is like, in music and in every way, it's like very responsive. Like I've never one time felt not listened to by anybody on the show. Like if something doesn't feel right or natural, I can always be like, can you explain to me the path of how this got there or whatever? And they welcome things that are real and true. I think like Friday Night Lights. I mean, we have like W.G. Sniffy Walden here who did all the music for Friday Night Lights. And like, on Kaden's shows, I feel like he really treats the music like a character, like it's part of setting the tone of the people and all this stuff. And like for example, like Amber wasn't supposed to be like a musician, but like they found out that like I could sort of play music, and they were like, well, let's use that, like let's incorporate that. And so that was like a really fun thing, and so I guess for me that was gonna be my answer, which was like the Graveyard song, which is like a song that Amber plays at open mic night, and it's just like this really short little song, but that kind of like encompasses the whole experience for me, I would say.
Actually, the music is such a huge part of the show. And season 3, Jason Kadam's Christmas gift to all of us was these little iPod Nanos with all the music from the show. And it was so fun to be driving around, and these songs would come on, and it's like you don't even realize, and then suddenly you're making the connection, like, oh, that's when Drew told Amy that he loved her, or, that's when, Amber got into the car. It's just like it all, like, clicks.
That beach song was really good. Remember, and that was a friend of Jason Ritter's, the one that plays at the end when Ryan and Amber are frolicking in the ocean. There's this like, maybe you remember. There's like this beautiful song. I can't remember what his name is, but it's this beautiful song, and it turns out it's one of Jason Ritter's like high school best friends. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What's great is that a lot of us are huge, passionate music fans in real life, and so last year when we came up with the luncheonette, we thought of it first and foremost as a story, and then it sort of developed this life of its own. And next thing we know, CeeLo's in an episode playing, Take Another Little Piece of My Heart Out, Baby, which was on the iPod. I love that song. And then Dawes came in and these other bands. So now through the luncheonette, we have a way to tell what we think are organic stories, and we can get people who want to do the show to come and be in an episode and we can use their music, and it's really great.
Yeah, and I also love the old music too. One of the scenes that really stands out for me is when Zeke and Camille are talking about Ryan, and Zeke is they're just I just found it such a lovely, simple scene. Zeke's talking about how worried he is, and Whiter Shade of Pale is playing as if they're listening to it, and it just felt right because it felt tonally right, but it also felt like what they would be listening to.
And doesn't a season end with Craig singing on ukulele? It does.
Oh yeah, season 1. Season 1.
That's
cool. On our iPod too.
Have you guys had, now that last season was, such a wider success, have you had actual music artists reach out to you as fans of the show? Was that last season, or would it be something for this coming season?
For this coming season.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people too, like my friends that are musicians, almost every single one of them is like, is there any way we could play at the luncheonette, like anything? They like really want to do it, and it's such a cool platform for that.
We had like a crazy run-in with Stevie Nicks being like, I love Parenthood, like I want to get in the luncheonette, and we're like
I want that
crying.
to happen so bad. She went to my high school, and my dream is I like could
she literally like loves Parenthood, and it was
so
crazy.
Cool.
There was a scene I think it was this season, with Crosby and Jasmine and Jabbar with the whole inward scenario. And I just remember like watching it, and I'm in an interracial marriage, so I'm watching it and I'm like crying. Then my husband comes home and I'm like, you have to watch this, and then he's like crying. Tell my parents like, you have to watch this, and they're like crying. And it's just, it's something where like the way the show is written, like the race doesn't ever really become an issue, but I just felt like that was so well done, and it's like you're watching her talk to Jabbar, and like the camera, like it's set up where Crosby, everybody knows the history of the word, but like Crosby's like hearing it for the first time in a way, like the way it was done. And so I just wondered like what was the thought process around kind of doing that with it.
Sarah wrote that episode.
Yeah, I wrote that. So I can talk about that because obviously that was actually one of the episodes I'm most proud of. So thank you. But it was also a really hard episode because obviously I'm white, and so for me, sort of my entry point in writing it was really like Crosby, just sort of the best of intentions and the best heart, but not understanding in the same way that Jasmine would. And one of our writers, Monica Henderson, she's half black, half white, and so a lot of that story came from sort of her childhood and the first time you're realizing these very adult things as a kid in Berkeley. And times are different and times have changed. So we didn't want to tell a big preachy story, but we wanted to tell a story of a kid hearing that word for the first time. And actually that had come from some friends of mine who, they're in an interracial marriage, and their daughter, we were at the beach, and some people were blasting rap, and it had the N-word in it, and she went running up to her mom and said, "Mom, what does that word mean?" And her mom is white, and I saw that look of like, I have no idea how to explain this to my child, and part of me doesn't want to. And so that's really where that story came from.
Please, you guys, let's get in there with Joaquin Phoenix. He can break a toilet or whatever he did in MS.
That's a great idea.
I didn't know that.
I didn't realize that it was that anniversary. It's funny, we reference the movie more often than I would imagine we would have in the room a lot. There's a great line in the movie that we were just talking about, I think Thursday before we came. It's Steve Martin's character, and I think he's at this point of being at a loss, and he says, "My whole life is about have to." I think it's something along those lines. Just a great moment in that movie, and we literally talked about that line and said, does that suggest a story? So we do still draw from the movie a lot. We were just at an awards event in Los Angeles recently, and Brian Grazer presented us with the award, and he was very funny. He's a big champion of the show. He apparently doesn't know we've been on for 4 seasons, but he referenced the movie in the source material, and I think a lot of that still holds up. So I think that's a great idea. I think
I think one thing this panel has to address is crying.
We're sorry.
In like a sincerely positive way. That there's
something very cathartic about a good Parenthood cry, and the kind of show you do is something where you could easily get a cry that makes you cry. Especially to me, the cancer storyline I was really worried about because I've got some personal experience with that, and I thought, number one, is this either going to kill me, or number two, is it going to feel like you're totally cheap, you know, giving someone cancer or putting a child in peril. But my God, you earned like every tear you got from that season. It was such a profound experience. So I wonder, first of all, the writers could talk about that, basically writing to make people cry. And then the actors writing things where, or excuse me, acting out things where you have to cry, and you have to at least sometimes maybe not cry, and kind of dealing with the deep emotional issues you deal with on Parenthood.
Writing to make people cry. It's you know, the danger for me is melodrama. And that's true for most television writing, so you don't want to be melodramatic. And there is a sense of, I mean, one of the things we discuss in the room is how can we tell this story in the fewest number of scenes, keep it simple, and give it to the actors. And we're very lucky that we have such an amazing and talented cast. I mean, sorry, I'm about to cry. There was a scene last year, and it was Hattie's goodbye. I have a son who was going off to college, and we had said goodbye to him. But the way that scene was written, they're in the airport, right? And she's been fighting with her mom the whole episode, and at the end they have this moment where Hattie walks off and comes back. And even in the dailies, I was like, oh my God, you know, it's almost like you didn't even need to say anything, because the way the story had been told and set up to that point, you just sort of knew, you know, what was in Hattie's head, and you understood the moment. So I guess what I'm saying is, I feel like a lot of it is in creating the right story and then not overwriting it, and then letting the actors do their thing, because they never disappoint us.
Yeah, I mean, so many of the stories are intensely personal for us, and the writer's room gets so personal, and we cry in the writer's room all the time. We've had to nickname Tuesdays Cry A Lot Tuesdays, because some writer seems to end up in tears. I was writing one episode, and I can't remember what scene it was, but I was writing in a coffee shop, and I just started sobbing in the middle. It's just, so yeah, and then obviously our incredible casts bring so much to it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as an actor being on the show, it's so nice to feel loved and trusted, and I think like that's what makes the difference on the show, is that every single person on the crew and the cast feels like they are trusted for whatever their special light is that they're going to bring to the show. And you know, and I think for something that's emotional, I think it's like a big thing that actors dread when you're writing and it says like, Amber starts to cry, Amber is now crying, she's hysterical, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, Jesus, like, now that's in my head, and you know, you can't like go through the maze backwards, you have to find it naturally. And I think like that's something that, I mean, there are scenes where, you know, it seems like we were going to cry and we didn't. There are scenes where you weren't supposed to cry and we did it anyway. You know, they let us really find it naturally, and I think that sort of makes it really genuine, and that's why you do avoid the melodrama, because they're not writing to cry or just writing to tell the truth, and like that stuff really comes out when you're able to just be present and in the moment with it. And I think like you get surprised, and you know, I mean, I have friends that tell me like that with this show, you know, it's with their families, or you know, that they haven't been able to find a way to emotionally open up to them, and then like they will watch the show together, and it has just specifically broken down enough barriers for them to like openly communicate emotionally and stuff like that. So I mean, I think that's pretty special, you know.
On the flip side, I was talking to Monica Potter for an interview recently, and she had said after this season she was really, really hoping you guys would give her something that she could laugh about next season, or that she could have a comedic side. Do you guys ever look forward to an episode where maybe there's a bit of levity for your characters and you can kind of bring the humor to the show as well? And to write?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean we did the what was the episode where they all went to see Zeke's mom, and that episode was sort of conceived as sort of a loose riff on "It's a Mad, 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 Mad World." It was like the Braverman's on the road, comedy gold.
Yeah.
So we do think it's very conscious. And by the way, even on Monica's storyline about breast cancer, we all in the room we were constantly saying, you know, we don't want this to be heavy all the time. You want it to be funny. There were funny beats in the story. And I think the moments of comedy come, a lot of them from the actors. A lot of it is, improv, which is sort of the style of the show. It's just funny little stuff that happens in the moment that I think that's where the humor comes. It's not like we sit down and go, all right, we're going to write the funny episode. But we do we call them runners. We'll have, wouldn't it be funny if we did a small story where ... And you don't make it a big, heavy, dramatic story. You just say this would be, a comedy runner. Amber trying to, what was it, a mouse in the apartment or something? It was
when there was mice and Lauren comes over and we're like jumping around on the
that was literally somebody in the room said, let's do an Eka Mouse scene, and so we did an Eka Mouse scene.
Yeah, and this year was fun for Amber because she got to like fall in love. So that was like, she's usually pretty dark. There's a lot of tears for her, but I think that was like kind of nice too, is that it was mixed in with like the light and the dark was mixed. The scene where like you're so used to when you get to see Amber and Ryan, it's like so much love and happiness, and then like that scene where they had their big fight. I went home and I was feeling bad. I was feeling really sad for a while because it's like you did your job, you made me feel bad. But it's like that's such it's an upsetting, scary moment because it's the first time you see sort of a darkness that feels like it doesn't even have to do with what they have, but it does come into play and stuff. So that was kind of sad, right? Were you sad? You don't care. He's over it.
I tell you what really cracked me up, and I thought we maybe could have even mined more, is the idea of Drew's first romance. And there was so much comedy in the way that story started, with dropping off the thing. And it was just like, wouldn't it be, just that, because, again, I have kids that age, and I watch them, and I was like, it's so awkward and so real. But I think, I thought that was a really funny way to start that story.
Well, also, like May said, with the getting emotional, just kind of like everyone, we're also comfortable together at this point that like things kind of happen that you don't even intend, like crying in something where you're not supposed to be crying. And I feel like a lot of the stuff, like the comedy, so to speak, is also like that, where it's like once you read it and you're like, yeah, this makes sense, and then you get there and you're like, this is like a weird situation. This would be really uncomfortable, and it's just interesting, which you guys are probably aware of. But when I read it, I'm like, this is normal, and then it's like weird, and it would be
like Mr. Sear walking in on you.
Oh yeah, when I read that, I was like, this is cool. He's like my bro. No, I'm just kidding. It was very. I guess that's the writing there. I don't know. It's just funny.
I often wonder if Zeke is still in debt from his Lane deal. I was wondering if there were other kind of storylines that you were kind of waiting to come back to resolve.
Well, I think the story is, Sarah can speak to the land. I think the story we feel like for Zeke and Camille, frankly, that seems teed up for them is Empty Nest. Is their kids moving out and moving on. And, Craig T. Nelson is so amazing. By the way, my favorite moment of the whole series to date is when he and May, after she had the car wreck, are in the junkyard. And I believe the line, "I dreamed this family," was not scripted, was it?
No, he wrote that.
Craig said that.
And I didn't know, we didn't rehearse it at all. Like, we just showed up to the set that day, and he was like, I'm just going to say some stuff to you. And I was like, all right. And then he just said that shit at me, and it was hard to hear.
That's just an amazing moment that just came from him. So I forgot what the question was.
Oh, I can speak to the land deal, because that was season 1. And I think that I would hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I think this has been in the media, but it was actually wrapped up, and then we had to switch some episode ordering around for a storyline, so we had to cut the scene, and so sorry. But they're okay. Zeke and Camille are okay.
I actually had a comment question. We love the Ryan and Amber line, so please keep that going. Writers. Secondly, there's so much cross dialogue where the characters are talking, like May will be talking to her mom, and they're talking over each other. How do you write that?
We don't.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of ad lib, and that also feels really good, to be trusted to do that stuff and see what comes out. And I just went to the Friday Night Lights panel this morning, and Connie Britton was talking about how amazing the editors are, how amazing the sound crew is, that they're able to capture that stuff and and be able to separate it and sort of make it into a coherent scene. And if any of you have a family and you go to a dinner, it's loud and people are talking over each other, and it's stressful and annoying, and it's wonderful and fun, and it's all those things. I think that's what makes it so realistic, but it is so nice to show up at a rehearsal and be like, okay, what is the tone of this story, of this scene? Like, what needs to be discovered here, and then sort of have free reign to go in and just play. And they give us time to find it, and we have Lauren and I have such a specific rapport, and it's just so fun to be able to explore that and bring that into a show, because it's so real and it's so special to me. And so to be able to kind of have watch our thing really grow and be strong, and be able to have and with everybody, I mean, everybody does that and throws in. One of my favorite moments of the whole show is when it's the scene where Lauren and Miles and I are in the car, and she's trying desperately to give us a serious talk about drugs and alcohol, and we're just blowing her off and making jokes at her and stuff, and she's like, guys, I'm serious, it's really bad, I need to tell you about drugs and alcohol, and you can just barely hear Miles in the backseat going, Amber's on both right now. Barely hear it, but it's those moments really make. So I always I love to watch the show turned up really loud and not let anybody talk, so I can hear all those tiny things that they let be found.
We have time for one more, so we have a little surprise at the end. I can't see him.
I just was wondering, I know May is a huge Friday Night Lights fan. I was just wondering for the writers and for the other cast members, what is the one show that you're obsessed with, your one favorite show now?
Wow, that's a great question. Right now, I'll just back up by saying Justified forever, because I love Walton Goggins' character. I think that show is amazing, and I think that character is amazing. Gosh, right now we've been watching this show called Rectify. I don't know if you guys have heard of this or seen that. That's amazing. I think really well done. And I'm behind the curve because I have them on the TiVo. I'm just getting into Homeland. So those are about... Oh, by the way, of course, I should say, my favorite show is Modern Family, honestly, because I think Modern Family is just so well done. And it's a half-hour version of us in some ways that we kind of joke about a little bit. But I love that show, and I will dearly miss 30 Rock, which I think was the best writing on television.
I'm also a huge Friday Night Lights fan, and was before.
I think we all are.
Yeah, everybody is. But no, David was the executive producer of Friday Night Lights and a writer. And so when I met with Jason, I was so just intimidated and in awe, and I can't believe I get to write with all these Friday Night Lights people. And actually, a fun Friday Night Lights story is that Jason Katims in his office has the Clear Eyes, Full Hearts, Can't Lose sign, and it's above his desk. So when you're sitting there getting notes from him, you're staring at this. And so every time we're done in a meeting, I just hop up and I'm I won't let you down, coach. It's just... And every morning when I walk into work, we have the the Dylan welcome to Dylan sign. It's just it's incredible, and all these pictures in our office. So it's something to sort of aspire to and live up to.
I also have a Friday Night Lights story. When I came in for my first audition, it was with Jason Katims, and I was so excited. I loved Friday Night Lights. I was I was just excited and scared. And when I was leaving, I was I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna do it. And I said in a really small voice, I just want to say a Clear Eyes, Full Heart. And Katims was can't lose, and I was freaked out. I was holy shit. It went great.
Oh, but the problem is, when we were writing season 2 of Parenthood, Friday Night Lights the last season hadn't ended yet, and 4 of the writers from Friday Night Lights came over to our writers' room, and so they would be talking about oh, well, it's when Coach and Tammy blah blah blah. I'm that hasn't happened yet. And finally, I had managed to avoid spoilers, and then their stupid crew gift had the score of the final game on. So one day, somebody walks in wearing this hat. I'm come on!
I also Enlightened, though, which is on HBO. It's funny.
I feel bad. I love the show Chopped, but also, aren't we we're against reality TV, right?
No.
Okay, and Project Runway.
Project Runway. I also...
But Breaking Bad, I know that's the most generic, but I love Breaking Bad. It's the best. It's my favorite.
You guys, I want to say more. I also Pretty Wild, which is on Netflix, which is what The Bling Ring is based on. And I also want to go on the record and say that I really like Secret Life of the American Teenager.
This is you, Les.
Oh, yes. We are so late to the game for Arrested Development, but every single episode, multiple times through, I pause which must be incredibly annoying. But like, I pause and look at my wife and I go, "Can you believe it? Like, it's funny, but how do they think of this stuff? You know, like all the callbacks from before. It's just so brilliant. I'm like, who is that smart and who is that funny? And like, of course, we've just gotten into the like Anne stuff. We're in the second season, so she's like incredible in it and so funny. And then Alia, I think, is in the room. Or maybe where is she?
I think she had to catch a flight.
But anyway, she's hilarious. But so, and we also were in Homeland. We ran out of DVDs that I was like filching from my agency. So we're somewhere in the second season. We think that's great. We think what else do we want? We watched Newsroom and what? Yeah, Newsroom, and she's like mouthing, but I can't. House of Cards, we loved that, and Mad Men, we kind of fell off the wagon, but we want to get back on. We just don't know where we fell off. Things like that, etc.
All right, it is May's birthday coming up tomorrow, and we have a little surprise for her at the end of the panel.
God.
Tim Riggins.
I think it's coming. Sorry.
I have no idea. Is it a cake? I'm getting stressed out. What is this? Happy birthday